For today's Canucks video, I wanted to take a look at the 2014 NHL Entry Draft, and with our hindsight goggles on and our time machine in my backyard, let's take a look at what things would have been like if I redrafted the Vancouver Canucks draft picks from this year, 2014, with the knowledge that we have today. It's a weird video, and it's more of a novelty kind of thing, less of a news update or whatever. Now, quick reminders, this is just for fun, and this should not be taken as some serious, revisionist history kind of thing. No, this is just for fun, taking a look at the draft and seeing who the Canucks could have had if they just had a little bit of a time machine like we seem to do here. So let's go back over to the 2014 NHL Entry Draft, where the Vancouver Canucks were selecting 6th overall in the first round. We all know this. Back with that pick, the Canucks selected Jake Virtanen, who's had a slow uprising ever since that day. However, with hindsight, I would select for the Vancouver Canucks William Nylander from the Modo Hockey Club in the Swedish Hockey League. Today, William Nylander has 200 points in 284 games played, primarily as a right-wing player. So that's the same role that Jake Virtanen fulfills, but I'm a bigger fan of the slick, skilled, shifty game that William Nylander possesses right now. This is a pick that a ton of people have been speculating about and debating over the past 6 years pretty much. So overall, it's a big toss-up as to whether or not you would take Virtanen or Ehlers or Nylander, but for the sake of this video right here, we're selecting William Nylander as a member of the Vancouver Canucks. Going over to the Canucks' next pick, 24th overall, the Canucks selected Jared McCann, still in the first round. McCann was eventually traded to Florida in exchange for Erik Goodbranson. There were some other details involved with that trade, but with this pick, and hindsight included, the Vancouver Canucks select again from the Swedish Hockey League, this time from Södertälje SK, David Pastrnak. Now, Pastrnak was initially drafted immediately after Jared McCann, and today, Pastrnak is the top NHL player in goals for this season. We all know how good Pastrnak is, we all know the steal that he has turned out to be, and we all know that the Vancouver Canucks were literally one pick ahead of him. So, it's a burn that Canucks fans don't like to think about all too much, considering Jared McCann turned into Erik Goodbranson, who eventually turned into Tanner Pearson, who is pretty okay today, but still, David Pastrnak is so much better than anything that the Vancouver Canucks could ever have hoped for receiving in the Jared McCann or the Erik Goodbranson trade scenarios. Going over to the next Vancouver Canucks pick, the Canucks selected in the second round, 36th overall, Thatcher Demko. And in this redraft, with hindsight included, I'm selecting for the Vancouver Canucks 36th overall, from Boston College, Thatcher Demko. There isn't really another player here who is in this ballpark that I think is enough to warrant a selection over Thatcher Demko, because Demko honestly is looking really good, and he looks like he's trending upwards in the right direction, and he's on pace towards being one of the better NHL drafted goaltenders, especially for the Vancouver Canucks down the line. The guy's quick, the guy's solid, the guy's calm, he knows how to stop pucks, and he's a very effective goaltender, and he has been for a long time. Back in 2016, he actually wasn't the first drafted goaltender in the draft. The goaltender who was drafted before him was Mason McDonald, and that was 2 picks earlier to Calgary. McDonald was drafted over Demko because Demko had a few injuries and a few recoveries that people were kind of questioning, so McDonald got the nod instead, but hindsight is 2020, and my hindsight tells me that getting Thatcher Demko was the best selection available. Going over to the third round, where the Vancouver Canucks initially selected Nikita Tryamkin with the 66th overall pick, I have here in our hindsight redraft, the Vancouver Canucks select with the 66th overall pick from the Moose Jaw Warriors in the WHL, Brayden Point. Yeah. Can you believe this guy went this late? Brayden Point is one of the most effective forwards in the NHL, let alone on his own team. The Lightning have Stamkos, the Lightning have Kucherov, the Lightning have Hedman. So they have a whole bunch of really, really good players, but Brayden Point, at 23 years old, belongs in that conversation. And for a guy drafted in the 3rd round, initially 79th overall, that's crazy, crazy good. Thinking about it like this with the hindsight Vancouver Canucks draft, the Canucks, in this scenario, have already drafted Nylander, David Pastrnak, and now Brayden Point. That is a legit NHL line. That is a line of all-stars. 3 players who can legitimately be, on some nights, the best players on the ice. Pastrnak is amazing. Nylander, he's pretty good. And Brayden Point is Brayden Point, one of the most effective centers in today's game, and the Vancouver Canucks in this redraft are taking all 3 of them. It's a line that can probably, if you put it together on one team today, get a whole bunch of points and lead the league in all these categories. Brayden Point almost got 100 last year. Pastrnak is on pace to getting like 50-something or 60 goals this year, and it's just crazy the amount of talent that was discovered later on in the draft. Let's move over to our next pick. With the 126th overall pick, the Vancouver Canucks initially selected Gustav Forsling from the Linköping in the Swedish junior leagues. He's not playing in the NHL today. He was traded over for Adam Clendening in Chicago. So in this redraft, the 126th overall pick belonging to Vancouver is going to be used to select from the Barrie Colts of the OHL, Kevin Labanc. Labanc is a guy who totally just exploded in the OHL after being drafted. He was one of the highest scoring players in the OHL after his draft year, and for good reason too. The guy is so skilled, the guy is so shifty, really, really good, solid prospect, but he wasn't really all too much on the radar back when he was drafted. He was initially drafted in the 6th round, 171st overall. So, in our eyes for the redraft here, the Canucks are taking him with the 126th pick, and all of a sudden they have themselves a player who can easily get up to 50 points in a year. After being taken by the Sharks and suiting up for some of their games, Kevin Labanc has proved as one of the more effective players on that team. He's not Brayden Point level, he's not David Pastrnak level, but he's really, really solid for a late draft pick, especially one taken in the 6th round. Going over to the next Vancouver Canucks pick in this entry draft, we have ourselves the 156th overall pick. Initially, the Vancouver Canucks selected the Erie Otters' Kyle Pettit, who isn't really doing too much today in the NHL, but is doing a pretty okay job sticking over there in the U Sports League. Yeah, the college leagues here in Canada. But in our redraft with the hindsight, the 156th overall pick belongs to the Canucks, and with it the Canucks select from the Modo Hockey Club in the Swedish Junior League, Victor Olofsson. Now, if you know who Olofsson is, you're paying attention to the NHL scoring rookie race today. Olofsson has been a really, really good addition to this Buffalo Sabres team, and he is only 23, 24 years old. Granted, he's a little bit older as a rookie, but he's got a really good shot, a really good skill set, and he belongs in the NHL for sure. Olofsson is a guy who challenged Makar and Quinn Hughes early in the season for that Calder Trophy contention debate, and he was a guy who was leading in some people's minds. So taking a look at it, seeing how he's got 18 goals at the moment of this recording in only 48 games played on the NHL season, it's really nice the Sabres were able to pick him up in the 7th round of the 2014 draft. But the Canucks taking him here at 156th overall is a pretty significant improvement. Going over to the Vancouver Canucks' final pick of the 2014 NHL draft, the 7th round, 186th overall, the Canucks initially selected Mackenzie Stewart with this pick. But in our redraft, the Vancouver Canucks are selecting from the Chomutov Pirati in the Czech leagues, Ondrej Kase, who is one of the most annoying players to play against. Every time the Canucks play Anaheim, I hate watching this guy. He's really annoying. He's always disturbing the heck out of our players. But the Anaheim Ducks snagged Kase with the 205th overall pick in the 7th round. The Canucks here are taking him with the 186th pick earlier in the draft, but obviously he's a late round steal regardless. So, taking a look at it, this is what the Vancouver Canucks ultimately end up with in their 2014 draft in this little redraft here. William Nylander, David Pastrnak, Thatcher Demko, Braden Point, Kevin Labanc, Victor Olofsson, and Andre Kasha. Those are 7 players who are all legitimate NHL players today, and they're all pretty gosh darn good. It's kind of crazy how you can pick and choose the best players out of a draft when you take a look at it literally 6 years later. So obviously this video's got no sense of actual truth or whatever. This is just for fun. This is just a little bit of a toss-up in the mix of news related videos. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Social 99 and bye.